let's continue on with creation. I don't want to say framework. Let's call it color our convention. Finding our applications, just double checking the volume here. Let me know if it's okay online. Anyway, it's been a while since I streamed, so here we go. Last time we got all of these previous slices here of the application to work with the new paradigm of basically defining in the program everything that's involved, the full stack wire up, including the testing of a single slice. And so we've gone through the naming, the setting the dates, the adding the rooms, and adding the time slots, as you remember from the last stream that you were looking at. And so now it's time to tackle the processor. And something that's different, of course, with the processor is that it has a standard view just like anything else here, like these state views that are green, except that we don't necessarily need to have any kind of display. You simply can have just this arrow here, basically saying that this is the to-do list for this processor to act upon. And I'm sorry, this is not cooperating right now in terms of relinking things, but there we go. Okay, it's kind of bugging me that it wasn't aligning here, but anyway, let me switch the view here so you can see more of the code screen and etc. So yeah, so what we really want to have is a way to express the fact that a processor is something that's entirely behind the scenes, and in the slice it doesn't really need to hook up to any HTTP related infrastructure. So it can just be kicked off as a separate running process that looks at this, or it can be manually kicked off after one of these green boxes gets updated. Then we should be able to look up which processors care about that particular green box and kick them off synchronously just right there and then, which is two of the options that I kind of programmed in to have that choice of immediate execution, which simulates your reactive framework type of thinking. As soon as an event happens, then things happen right away. Or you can have a more asynchronous link with some sort of a timed interval on which you're looking at this, probably something like, I don't know, half your SLA, whatever you want to decide. In this case, though, we do have a view for, let's say, the administrator. And so we haven't taken care of the security aspect of this whole application, but we will do that after we get everything running just the way we have. And I think we did have this screen programmed before. So we have this conference ID working. However, I didn't define that yet in our new slice implementation. That's why when I try to run it, I get this error at the end here because in this slice we don't really have a function for linking up to the post, so we don't have the navigation piece defined, and that's okay. We'll get that done because we need to do it because we have that here. So yeah, this is the admin screen. Basically, with processors and things that are happening behind the scenes, in order to support really good UX or DX for developer or sysadmin experience, you really want to make sure you're addressing the visibility of the internals in case there's some problems in maintaining the system and all of that. So I would we'll fix this issue here by this thing not running by providing this navigation, although I don't want it to be a requirement. I want to be able to support slices that really don't have the screen for the admin, and I want these to also be implementable without a without a view into them, if you so choose. Because we already have, if I do source all this and do events watch, then we already have this kind of watcher that shows all of this. And pardon me for making this so small. Let's go back to our size that you can read. Yeah, we already have this little utility we wrote here that allows us to watch these events come in. So that should be enough. We don't necessarily need web UIs to show how this processor is using its to-do list, but I thought this project should have it just so you understand how that's done. Anyway, so hopefully that that makes sense. I'm just going to double check that we're directly live here on YouTube, and I think YouTube is working. Good. So yeah, this is enough for us to make things work. So let's just get things running. I don't like things in a state of kind of unrunnable state, regardless of unit tests passing. I think our unit tests still pass. I'm going to just quickly check. Yeah, I still have the ones that we hooked up. So again, just to recap from the last time, I totally ditched the old sort of separate collection of unit tests, and having the suite under tests being the slice being separate. So now we define the tests within the slice. So in other words, kind of like graphically what we see here on our event model, where we have tests for this to-do list, for example, you would have that as part of the slice object. So we actually just anchor the tests right on there. So, yeah. All right, so yeah, tests pass, which is good. It's just that the application doesn't run because it doesn't have it so far always expected to have a navigation piece kind of added to this layers thing out of the way. A navigation piece always added to the slice definition, which means that you always kind of have a view. Now, in order to make things simpler, we could always have a default one, and if the URL goes nowhere, then so be it. So let's just take a look at the code to show how that works. Get rid of this and go to the code, and we see here that we have this generate conference ID request, and that is okay. That's the request, which works because that's a view where the administrator clicks go ahead, make a conference ID, so that we can generate a QR code for participants to join the conference with. But here, this is where we kick off the basically the generation of the ID. Again, the ID is a very simple generation of the ID is a simple call to a library that gets you a UUID, but we wanted to pretend that it's something, that calls an external service or is non-trivial. So that's why we put it behind the processor. And for most applications, you won't be doing this, and I don't think we'll be doing this for UUIDs used elsewhere. We just wanted to have at least one slice or a couple of slices that show the mechanics behind automation behind the scenes, and to-do lists are at the core of it. So as you can see, the navigation here is much different because we just have a processor, which I think we're going to do as a separate thing. So I don't want just navigation here. I think I want a processor, and then we want to have we don't have a direction, but we have two things. We have the to-do list and then the execution. So I don't know how we want to call it. I don't want to call it direction because it is output, but it kind of feels bad to call it output because in the processor, you're actually you want the input first into the processor, and the to-do list is the input into the processor. But in terms of looking at state changes, the to-do list is an output of the current state. So I just don't want to even revisit that. I want to call this as the processor, not orchestration. What could we call this? Well, first of all, what classification is this? We can do side, and we can say, I don't want to call it input. I want to call it not orchestration. What would it be called? Let's just call it not sequencing side. Okay, so we'll do loading, right? And that way we could have the to-do list here, because when we're doing loading here, the processor is involved. So that's the nice thing here, is that we can involve, because it has one green box, and we always define a green box as a way to kind of define what a slice is. Like, we always enumerate based on state changes and state views, unique state changes and unique state views. And so as an example, if we're using this maybe in navigation, we don't really need, I mean, we do want to have that other part, which is going to now work for the generation conf ID, and I forget what we called our view, but we really don't need this navigation to be oh, that's the action, that's the next one, so we should have it here. This is the output. We don't need navigation. Actually, we do, but so this processor actually goes up here. Sorry, that's the correct way to think about it. Okay, so we're talking about this one. Kind of got ahead of myself by having both slices there. So I called it like a conference ID generation processor to do and processor action. That's kind of what I was getting at here, which side. So I guess we'll just call it the to do side. Let's just continue with that, with that approach. The navigation, we have output, but we don't, we can put in this, these paths here. We'll correct them. So we don't have the to-do list here, but we just have the path. And I believe, let's take a look at our views. We have defined the conference name confirmation, conference name, join conference. Oh yeah, to do gen conf IDs. So we have this sort of admin screen that will show to administrators what the current outstanding tasks are. So that's here, and as you can see, it just shows the contents of the to-do list here, which is fine. You can see it's getting a conference ID here, so we'll hook that up properly. But in this case, yeah, because we have output, we can create whatever we want, and I think in here we already had where is this? Slice tests, function generate. Where's our app? App get. Okay, that's registration. Join conference. Thought we had that somewhere here. Oh, there it is. It's right here. Okay, so this is the one that that we'll be using. I'll copy that, and of course I have to and generate IDs to do gen conf IDs. I did that, not select everything. Oh, I see. It's highlighting it there, but not actually highlighting. Okay. So that is the processor. Now, I know some people want this kind of to be more joined a little bit better than just by the name convention, because they always belong together, but they don't necessarily always belong together. They definitely will have something on the event model that a processor can correspond to the right-hand side of it being in a different system. The processor, in terms of modeling the information flow, always has a source and destination for the information, and that obviously does not need to be in the same system. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to automate system creations. So that actually are distributed or take information from the outside. So let's keep going here. We want to rewrite that. No, that's this one here, where the path to show these is that, and then of course we don't need a next path. I don't think we do. Why did I copy that from an output? Oh, it's just a view. Yeah, so it should be a view. Oh no, I put it in the wrong place. Here. It's this guy here. No, no, I was right. It was this one. That's the output, yeah. So we go to display that here. And then we don't have a next path. That's what was causing the have a next path. We have a view, and that's the one that's there. Good. We have all of these things here. The refinement, make query result. So because we now have a view, it should hook up properly to Express, and so we run it. Yeah. We have this weird undefined thing, which is odd. I haven't seen that before. And that's probably to do with some of the weird logic that we have in our bootstrapping. Because at this time, I'm actually changing the bootstrapping. Let's split this window and scroll up to where we are bootstrapping all this. So in terms of how we did this before, if we don't have a refinement function, that means we have something that doesn't deal with state at all, and it's just a page redirect. So we kind of wanted a short circuit for a slice really that isn't a slice, and I'm kind of rethinking that, whether it should be part of the slices altogether. So I kind of don't want to have this in there at all. I'm not sure if like a good example would be yeah, like the default view for naming the conference, where we kind of start everything, and that would be here, right? Do I really want this as, you know, the first one, or do I want since this particular view doesn't have any state things, do I want to support multiple navigation entries inside a slice? And the only interesting thing about the slice, again, is this input direction on here, which simply shows that. Now I could quickly solve this by really, and I should have done this long ago, is to really give this the output of if there is a current name to the event, to actually just pre-populate that. So we could easily solve that dilemma, but I know that this will come up again, where we have just a dumb page that is really informative only, and for navigation purposes or whatever, is not dynamic at all, doesn't provide a way to input any data into the system or affect the state of the system in any way. And so we want a place for that. I haven't really figured out what that is. So that's part of like stage 2 cleanup of all of this. So let's keep going. The idea, though, behind all this is that we want to be able to use an event model the same way that we use a wireframe, except we need to glean some better information about the state and to be able to link up proper acceptance tests along the way, so that we have a much fuller specification to the system than just the wireframes would give us. That's the goal. But we still keep that UX focus, and now we just have to be, wary that these vertical slices, they can involve multiple different avenues for navigation or processors. So, for example, whenever we have this vertical slice looked at, we always anchor it to a unique green box or a unique blue box, and that's kind of that is what's going to, at least especially in event source solutions, it's going to really give you a good anchor for estimates and all the supporting work to be able to have the functionality you want in the system. So given that, let's continue just slogging through this so that we get rid of these weird undefines and all that. I'm not sure if I changed some of this here, I believe. What did I do here? Why is that down? Oh, I see. I was up here. So yeah, if yeah, I wanted to see if the navigation web data was undefined. That doesn't make sense anymore. So basically, we're taking care of that first behaviorless thing as a slice. And again, I'm going to revisit if that's a good idea. I don't think it is. I think we're going to find a better place for it. But for now, I think it's a good place for it to be here. And essentially, all that it's doing is getting an app get and saying, what's the URL, what's the view. Obviously, there's no data there, so the model is always blank, and just go and return that in a response. That's all we need. But here for the rest of it, we have whether something is input or output. We get a post or a get depending on input or output, and then we do our regular event-sourced set of handlers. But processor, that's going to be a little different because we're going to need the same type, almost the same type of workflow, except there is no web interface. It's really just a timer that's kicking it off or a call to a function. So it's going to be a lot thinner than what we have here. And of course, the wrapping is not going to be, calling an error next. It's not going to be part of a web request. So any error handling is going to be done differently. So my gut feeling is that we're going to kind of extract this again, kind of like what we had originally in here, where we have get events and put events. Oops, let's get rid of that. We had get events and put events. Sorry, get events and push an event, a new event, as our kind of core functionality, and then we will kind of have two ways to call it. Call each one of those things. One will be within the app method where we do wrap things with, such as status codes for the web. And then outside of this app method, it's called to this app method, essentially calling just the core pieces without the web wrapping around it, and maybe a console log message. And that's it. But it does pose a small little issue here, because we also have, if we have to put this in an if statement. If we actually have a navigation node in here, and it might be a bunch of other things that we might want to do. So maybe we have a collection of instrumentation, and then the types of instrumentation may be hooked up to the web process, the request response stuff by the framework, and maybe something to do with automation. So I think that's what we'll end up with. But for now, we'll just hack it together and see that it continues to work. Again, at the core, we're trying to make sure that things like our for time slot state view and for things like our, you know, the green box, which is a to-do box, we always have our business logic just here. And then, you know, how we hook that up, we just abstract that out here. And we were doing it manually, but it just became kind of a hassle. And since we're doing things manually the same way over and over again, it's easier to just have some sort of abstraction. And in this case, we want navigation, and we also want the processor to use this green box. So that's kind of what we'll do. So things run, but again, this weird undefined here is probably something that is coming from this second guy, which really doesn't have, there's no way to manually through a screen generate that ID. We could do it, obviously, if something is stuck and the processor is not doing that. We could also have a manual override for our automation and provide a input screen here for the you know, to handle it. Maybe this view that we have here when the admin goes and looks at these to-do gen conf IDs, you know, these tasks that the system's supposed to do. And if the processor is not working for some reason, maybe we abstracted that out to a separate service and it's down for whatever reason. Maybe there is a button on that screen to say, hey, manually give this conference ID such and such a string sequence, and then, you know, publish that. So, you know, that might actually be really good. One of the things about event modeling and event sourcing is that the automation types that we have are all really abstracted to just this to-do list, which makes it very human friendly. And so what we would do in this case is maybe by default, you know, this is like because we have such a high opinion of having automation be human administrable, or at least like anything that's automated in any information system, you can always make the argument that I can give a regular UI, a regular web page, to an admin that can do the same thing that we're automating. Mind you, it may take them a long time. You might, you know, you probably don't want them to carry out a hash function by hand. But for the most part, when we're shoveling data in these information management systems, a lot of this stuff can be done by a human. We definitely would not want to do that all the time. But hey, might even be a customer support portal. We're like, I'm trying to start a conference, and like your system's not giving back an ID. It seems to be stuck. So, you know, one of these screens could actually be, you know, someone manually doing that. And so let's play around with that idea. I kind of want to have a default. This will make a lot of this a little bit more simple, because we just assume that every slice, even if it's automation, does have a URL that an admin can go to. And of course, we're going to have to hide that behind some sort of a token for administrators that you have to check for the presence for before you allow things to happen. But yeah, I kind of don't feel like I want to skip this call here for any slice for whatever reason. I think we will have multiple navigation pieces. I don't know. Actually, we will probably have also the idea of multiple processors. So let's discuss that a little bit. So I'm going to close this extra view here. And let's just jump back to the explanation here. So sometimes this is a simple processor, which does just one action, generates this conference. But you definitely have to-do lists that have more than one checkbox per row of things that are done. For example, we always use the vacation booking thing, and a long-running process might be a to-do list, and you have maybe 5 things on there, 4 things, such as booking a flight, booking a car, booking a hotel and booking some vacation activities. So you would expect that this view, just for this example, you might not implement it like this. You probably have some sort of a simple table with child tables. But let's just say it's implemented as a flattened view. You would have, your trip ID or your vacation ID, and then you would have columns for booking numbers for the flight, a booking number for the car rental, a booking number for the hotel or whatever, etc. And like if they're blank, that means they haven't been done yet. So then there'd be like a separate processor for each thing, a thing that checks for the flight booking or does the flight booking. Could be manual or automatic. Same thing for the car rental. Same thing for the hotel, etc. So as those things come in, those pieces those events end up populating those missing pieces. So how do you express that with this? And more importantly, how do you then translate that to a slice? Because now a slice belongs with this, but you have 4 different ends to this processor, each having a separate command for either booking a hotel or booking a flight, and others. So this is why, this, oops, I think I'm gone too far here. Slices, push, yeah, slices, there we go. So that's why we would have one slice for the actual green box, but then you would have a multiple of these, one for a flight, one for whatever. Those are the types of things we would have. So we would have multiple conference ID generation processor actions, and I think conference ID generation, this would start to get different names, and I don't know how we would make a better convention for it that would kind of speak to what we're doing with the hotel booking and the flight booking, etc. And the fact that it's all coming off of vacation. So you would have to have somewhere within this convention the idea that a vacation booking has a subset of bookings for flight booking, etc. And it would be nice to have something that reflects that in here, so that people looking at the code understand that, but also more importantly that AI can do those associations more easily. So could do that with IDs and relate them. I just want to have something more natural, more readable to do that. So we'll see when we get to those types of processors how we do that. But for now, let's just run with this. And so we do have processor action here. I don't know if this is, this execution here, immediate. This is really a processor. And this is a side. And then our navigation would be, so let's just input generate conference ID, provide conference ID, right? So it would be like if we want to override it. And we can test that in our implementation. We have 2 ways to run processors. One is with, again, that immediate action here. And then, so we could also have execution, and we can have interval. And then we could have frequency. And that would be like every second or whatever, right? I think that's what it is. So, if we wanted to do that every 10 seconds, and like if we want to really test it, we could do like 20 seconds. So when we run this and go through this process, we kind of can step in and show how someone manually would do this, to do that. So I think that's really interesting here, because now we control, how each processor behaves. Certain processors, like this one, probably would be like execution immediate, because there's no point in waiting in terms of the scale of this. We're going to just give something back right away. But let's say you have to be careful with how often you hit your payment gateway or some other thing. Maybe a quote engine for stock prices where you can, incur extra charges if you're You know, if you're calling things out, or maybe you're automating some things that draw a lot of power, and you don't want to hit with the excessive power charges from your utilities company. So this is kind of like where you might have a processor that has, you know, a frequency like this, and then you want to do maybe you know, how many tasks, so task limit. And you might want to do one. So for example, this would only, if there's anything there, it would only at most be putting through one task every 20 seconds. And this might be done for something where this is really going to end up costing you some energy. And you know, that might be, I have no idea what the example would be. So motors running some automation in a factory or whatever. Or it might be something that's restrictive from gathering live market data, and that you have to pay a premium for it. So that's kind of like what you would do. Otherwise, you know, you would not have that. You would have immediate, and then you wouldn't even bother with the frequency and all that, right? So you know, that's kind of what I'm going to start with, but it's important to show that the processor are configurable, like right here. So when you're cross-referencing how does this processor work, when we're in the middle of our workflows and what people see, what's actually going on behind the scenes, we can just simply direct the slice to be like, hey, this thing happens every 20 seconds or whatever. And usually the reason I'm including that in here, sometimes people would say that some of this is like implementation details, but I don't think SLAs are. I think when you get a little spinning circle here, I think when you're talking to management and the people that are kind of like the product owners and the product sponsors, they kind of want to know what the UX is going to be like. So it's like, hey, you know, every time let's say this was a payment thing, we don't want to wait for a payment to be processed, you know, more than 10 seconds. I mean, maybe if it's something very important, like maybe you're buying Rolling Stones tickets or something, then maybe people are willing to wait, you know, minutes until they're processed, you know, until their tickets bought. But if you're buying, you know, coffee mugs or something, I don't know, and people expect that to be processed pretty quickly. And anyway, doesn't matter. Depends on the business. Like, but at least you have, you know, I usually have an SLA arrow for these types of things. I mean, we might as well make that an example here. If I copy this and just make sure I'm on the right layer. Oh yeah, event model. Yeah, so now I'm on the right level. If I copy this and paste it, and then just move it over, I'm just stealing the arrow. I'm not talking about a processor, but you know, I could say that just across here, you know, that this, from the time that you're showing this, I would most likely have style the line. Say I would probably pick red, apply, and that's the outline. Obviously the fill, also red, apply. So now I have a red arrow. And then I don't know if that text is part of this. I guess it's not. I think we glued this as a, that's together. So style, color. Why is it white? Like it's white. Again, I'm okay there. Now it's got the right thing. So here we might have, you know, a darker red. Jump in our, it's a little too dark. Oh, weird. So lighter red. Okay, that's better. So this would say, you know, SLA happens within 1 second, something like that. So we can just put these, I generally put these somewhere like here, where, you know, I link the state change as soon as I hit that button. You know, how soon do I see this on my screen? Okay. So I usually have that as a bunch of overlays, and I could have a layer for SLAs, and then I could turn that off and on. So might as well see if we can do that. Just cut that and add a layer here. Why not, right? I'll call it SLAs. And now we have it selected, so we can paste that in, and it's back where it was. But when we zoom out and we look at our whole thing, we can basically say, okay, our SLAs kind of show and disappear whenever we want to see them, just like we had like the code. I kind of showed the code for some of these things, and yeah, I can turn that off and on. So that's kind of neat. Yeah, we have an SLA thing now, which we can show for a processor. Maybe we should keep that as a thing to demonstrate this capability of an event model. And then, of course, as people are looking at this for requirements, this kind of tells me, that here we're kind of creating a conference URL. I'm an organizer. I'm not like a sysadmin. I'm just a conference organizer, an administrator of the system. I then have a QR code I can show to the participants. Then the participants can scan these QR codes and go ahead and register themselves and all that, and we continue on with that. But yeah, so these here are the views into. So how we're going to do this. So we have an empty thing here, IDs generated, IDs generated. I think we kind of want a better one here. So we kind of want a table, IDs generated. So we want something like this, where we have just a blank. Instead of having an empty. Oh, yeah. So we actually want to show that there's nothing. Like I could use a table layout. Maybe I should. To make it a little more clear. Selecting these is always tricky. Copy that and make sure that we're on the event model layer. Okay, I should probably have that at the top. Actually, no, because we have overlays everywhere else. So communication and progress kind of go on top of these things, I believe. Maybe progress behind. No, keep it like this. A little bigger. Come on, come on. There we go. Okay, that's a little bigger, so we see that. What the little white dot means. I think I moved something onto the progress piece, but whatever. Okay, so we want to make this a little bit nicer looking. We can paste. Can I paste here? Yes, I'll move that over here. Why am I dragging that? Event model, progress, SLAs. Just on the progress thing? Progress, that's that. Event model, yeah, that's on the event model. So now what's going on here? Let's just turn off the progress and the communication and the delays. So they're dealing with this stuff here. Now, obviously, go back. So before I paste that, let's get rid of these other layers. Go over here and paste here. So this is kind of our view instead. And I put it on the progress, which is not what I want. But you gotta have the right layer selected. And then, of course, I don't know why it goes there. I guess it's that object exists there. I guess I pressed Control V, or did I right click? I don't know. Anyway, Draw.io is weird. Not the best tool, but it's just using this as a template for this right now. So I want this to really just be the ID. I don't really need the other fields. Rid of them. Here we're gonna say ID. Here, say empty. Actually, we don't even have one here. So I think this is, we have total, okay, so we have, copy that. That actually should be here. We have that here because this is where we actually have something outstanding. And here we actually don't have that. So we can get rid of these little other doohickeys underneath here. Good. So that's kind of how we see that. But we do want to show that we get a text box to kind of add one or generate one, right? So I copy a bunch of these, stick them on here and edit them. And this will just, I don't know, for whatever reason, it's just going to be a brutal kind of thing that they can just add a conference ID provided event, regardless of what this is. They can use this as a guide. Kind of dangerous, but I guess you're an admin, right? Sysadmin, so you kind of want this kind of God mode type of functionality. So we really don't need how do we do this? Yeah, add ID. Really irritating with that. So we could basically type in an ID and add it manually. And I don't know if there's a valid reason why you would have like a never for your interval. So like maybe frequency 0, we could have some weird cheat code. I don't know why you would ever have never execute this, but you provide functionality. Maybe it's something that gets executed from a command line somehow. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's valid if it's something really only to be kind of used in an emergency. Maybe that's a valid place for that kind of a slice. So yeah, let's just keep going here. Why is that not selecting that? Okay, that's because this is a little too large. So let's do that and copy it and paste that here and move it into here as well. Okay, so in other words, if we hit this add, you know, we can actually link that up to this. That's another, God, I hate that it forgets the default style. So we have here, well, always have to do this. That is default style. Okay, so now if I have this, I can also show, I wouldn't, not from here, this one. I like in here. I could also do it manually if I want. If the system got stuck as an admin, I can now also do it this way. Again, I don't know if I would include this example. I mean, kind of makes it complete. So I can override the processor. If the processor barfed and it's not working, I know I can use this admin screen to do the same thing. So, and in code, that would really be the fact that we have a navigation here. We're providing the conference ID, and that this screen that we render here, this view, actually does have that. So let's just add that in here. Coding mustache, where is it here? Conference IDs, to-dos, generate. To-do generate IDs. Okay, so this guy here would now, I mean, I think AI can do that for us pretty quick. Why are we in here? And this can be, we could just steal the view here. And if I do screenshot of this, copy that, and put it in here and say add text field and button to be able to manually submit conference ID. And of course we need to be on this thing here. Let's see what it says. No, I don't want. Okay, so want this to only change the mustache thing, and I'll do everything else. Only change file. I don't want any more fancy stuff. So yeah, that should do it. It should show up in here pretty quick. Well, why is it not? Cursor like just buggy these days. What's going on here? Why is it not? Okay, I think it's because I don't have, they changed the prompt thing here. Edit ask agent. I don't want to use agent mode because that just does too much crap. I want just to edit the current one. It has, oh, I see. It has the wrong thing here. So that, and then the mustache, and but I do want to see the rest of the code. So there used to be like a send with the rest of the code. I don't know. Maybe that's the agent thing. Because it should know like what the other path is for changing it. Now that I added that, oh, I don't think so. Okay, so it did add that. It probably looks like crap, but it's an admin screen, so it doesn't really matter. And see, add conference ID. So this is where we, okay, so let's just accept that. Thank you, cursor. Let's just go with this add conference ID. So this is where in our implementation, we have to have this input, and our navigation is this. So if that's what it's hooked up to, Am I? Still running. What the hell is it doing? It's fine. So what's going on here? Push, next path. I guess it's the same thing. Step file, what the hell? Why is it changing this? I don't want... Yeah, sometimes, why would it care? So yeah, the path we want to go back is to the to-do gen conf IDs, right? And that's how we could really check that it's kicked off. And we'll test this by making like a 30-second frequency. In that time, we should be able to kick off this manual process. So, okay, I kind of like this, that we have a way to, like, the navigation allows you to have an administrator manually intervene. And of course, also navigation on the other side of the processor for an administrator to manually see the status of the to-do list. I think that's pretty cool. I think we get that for free anyway. And I would be quite happy with some auto-gen kind of cruddy type of view into all this. Even like manual JSON editing. I don't care as long as I have like an admin path to do all this, because I'm actually getting involved in the event sourcing way of working without just going, oh, I'm going to go into the file system and edit the contents of an event. That could be disastrous, and I don't want that type of hacking unless really, really necessary. I'd rather have stuck processors be manually kicked along by, you know, someone coming by like an admin and saying, okay, I can manually add the event that marks that thing as done, and you'll notice that those will automatically be projected along with a new state of the to-do list, so there won't be any problems here. So let's keep going. So we have that sort of running. This guy can go away. I don't need to look at that anymore. I think, well, this probably will not run. We certainly don't have the processors hooked up. Let's go back to our list here. Sorry, not that guy. I want to split this here and go back up to our bootstrapper, because we don't have anything here for handling that. You know, a slice has a processor definition, right? So we have now defined these two slices for the processor, which has the side to do and the side action. Right now we have immediate, and the thing that I was considering last time I was looking at this is, how do you pass along, you know, what I'm going to be doing? Because over here, this processor really isn't the only thing that we're doing is showing this refinement function and all that, but it should be able to, like, it should be able to kick off what we need to do. So I don't even know if this processing part is really necessary here. There's two parts to a processor. The part that interrogates the to-do list to see if it has something to do, and then it kicks it off. But I think in the context of this vacation example, if I have a vacation to-do list and there's columns for each thing that I need to do, such as booking a flight and booking a hotel as two separate actions that have to occur, then I would really want this to-do list to be visible here. So I'm not sure if I really need this processor definition here. I think it'll still work. I mean, this is just a view for the admin. I really want this to be in here. And I do want to copy paste it. The reason I want to copy paste it is that actually in the admin screen, if these were for the processors, if these were just IDs, for the administrator, I might want to add a few more event handlers for like naming, like looking up the IDs to like maybe who is this person and like their phone number or something. Or not just an admin, but maybe a support person, right? Someone at the help desk to see internally what's going on. It's like, oh yeah, I see your process, your payment is stuck for whatever reason. You know, they can see those internals. And so here, you know, you might have a slightly different set of event handlers than here. And then again, you're just looking at the convention because yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of good. So that relieves us of our duties here. As long as we put the entire contents of interrogating the to-do list to see if there's anything else, and then based upon what we find, kicking off what this particular slice is going to do. Now, if we had this idea that, you know, we had a vacation planning thing with multiple things that can happen, but we could do another slice here that would push in something like conference ID generation process action. So that let's make one up. I mean, if I generate a process, a conference thing here, I am actually going to need to do something else. I am going to need to actually, I don't. I think I have to have the admin or the organization ID. We still haven't dealt with the security aspect of this application, meaning that I need to have a token for the organizers. I was thinking I would generate that here, but that's too late. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So let's see, what else could I do on a conference? Is I could have a processor. We should kind of make one up here. Well, we could make one that does something with based upon weather, which would allow us to add a processor to look up the current forecast or something, but that might be too much. I'm thinking, okay, when you generate a conference, you give them a URL to join. What else are you going to do? Maybe do something for like vouchers, for like their coupons for getting the meal at some, I don't know, maybe there's a food truck thing that you have in this conference organization. And so conference organizers call maybe 5 different food trucks or something for this conference. And now you want to keep track of, you know, who's gone and spent stuff. And so the food truck the actual food truck people have a way to kind of track how many orders they've received, and they can scan QR codes with one another. So you could have something like name, and here we'd have conference food coupon processor action, right? So this is, instead of conference ID generation, this is a food coupon processor action, right? And it could, at this point, you know, something could be, I kind of like this example because it's kind of real world. You actually would do this potentially at an unconference or a regular conference. You probably will like prepay these food truck vendors for doing stuff, and then, you know, people could use this, scan the QR code to get their free ones, and hey, if they really liked it and they want to buy more, they can do that with their own money. But you know, you can have this deal with the food truck vendors that you're just passing on the credit. So in here we would have the same thing, and you could also have an override. So the navigation would have this input provide food coupon and all this kind of stuff. And it's kind of nice that it's guessing correctly. I mean, AI is doing a good job, but we are giving, a very nice formulaic way of going through this behavior. So it actually does, do these things properly. And maybe here this is not immediate. Maybe we don't want to swamp the food organizer, and this can only happen every hour. And this might be done, days prior. So who knows? Food coupon requested, food coupon generated, same kind of thing. Yeah, that makes sense. But the point is that here we really have, a single green box saying like, hey, we need a conference ID to be generated. But we could also have a second column on that to-do list saying like, here's coupons for it, right? And it could be just a long string of coupons, or at least I don't know. Who knows? It could be the number of coupons in there that we generated, and then we have those as separate things. And then as people register, we assign the coupons to certain people, send them an email with the coupons. Hey, show these QR codes to, any of the food truck vendors to get your food, and then that gets used up. So if they go to another food vendor, it won't work. So they can't. Anyway, that whole system can be done. But needless to say, what we have here is the left-hand side of the processor is here, and then you have two sides to the processor on that, or you could illustrate it as, a separate gear. I would probably have two gears, one that says conference ID QR code generation, and then another gear that would say lunch coupon generator. And that's that. I would have two gears and one green box that both of those look at. And so depending on what they generate here, these refinement functions, we do that here. And so generate ID, conference ID, I kind of want to inline that. Where is that here? So yeah, here we have the state view. We want to inline all this. We don't really want, this is all this stuff has to actually move into here. So let's get rid of the food coupon. We're not going to be doing the food coupon this time around. We could do it next time to illustrate that. But I just kind of wanted to play around with it. And it kind of makes sense now that we are adding navigation for administrators to do that. I don't know if we want to have, I'm kind of on the fence whether we want something like at any point, whether we start to do security in here, like do a role and then admin. This is kind of hard coded. I don't want to do this. I really would like, I really would want to show the role-based access stuff as a set of events as well, just to show that it can be done. So I'm not going to do that for now. We can just see whatever page you want to see based on your URL. And the only time that we differentiate between users is just the participants, where they see their own topics being suggested and things like that. So let's make this work. So we really don't have a processor here yet. So we apply the methods. The navigation gets kicked off, but we also have a processor that takes action on the same thing. What's interesting here this generate conference ID. What's interesting here is whether we have the same type of invariance for a manual override. and whether we're cramming that in, or whether we're cramming in two responsibilities into one. I think we really want to play by the same rules as the processor and kick things off. So let's just go with that for now. And I think if we have any other types of more elaborate things, we would probably require a separate slice, I think. These ones are kind of like the admin screens you get for free. But then if there's anything more fancy that we need to add, it'll be a separate slice. So generate conference IDs. We need to input that manually. Let's provide conference ID. This has its own thing here, which is, we need to like fold up all of these things into its own thing. So let's just do it manually. I think we can just look at the code down below, see that it's doing the right thing. The other problem is, of course, we're going to have the tests where we have, here we still have our metadata. So that's another point, is that we wanted to, this request of the unique ID. We do have some errors that we can throw here in case, I don't know if this is actually, I think that we're kind of showing that in a, what would happen if we had some concurrency issues, how would we handle them in case this was scaled out. So these tests aren't that important, and they don't show anything, so I'm actually not going to bother with them for now. So let's, this one has make result query state. That should show us all of these properly, and we can test them with this. And we really don't do anything on the processor side yet. We have a processor action. We have a refinement function here, which is for input. So this is for a post. And here we really don't have that. We have make event. And that's not right. So it still doesn't really learn the direction input. That our refinement function should just return that. Let's make a conference request. So make result would be not requested, but this would be provided. And here we would basically have the conf ID, and here we would have, yes, the parameter would be that. And so this is interesting because we really need to call the refinement function from the processor at some point. Because unless we go to these pages, we can't really generate that. So I think the processor should have, it should have something that I've went over this in the last stream. So to-do lists are always lists of things to do, obviously. And so the bootstrapping will provide a function that'll iterate over these and do this exact thing. And so in the case of this, we really have this opinion that we're going to ignore all past IDs and only look at the latest one. And if it's a blank, then we provide one and store it as that, or just like provide an event with an ID. And then if the last event that we care about is the provision of an ID, then we have the state view as a string. So in other words, that this to-do list in this application will never be more than one row. In fact, it'll have 0 rows when we're running the application for the first time, I believe. Actually, no, it won't. Yeah, it's always looking for a blank to do something with that. And so, yeah, by default, this will not have anything to do because the processor action will never get called if the collection's empty, of course. Okay, good. So that I think is good. So if it doesn't, so this is the thing. If it doesn't have anything to do because it was already provided, then it'll just skip and return. And this is only really testable in this application when we do the async and provide a manual way to do something and kind of do it ahead of time. And that's it. Of course, there's other concerns here, such as multiple processes doing the same thing. So we're going to have IDs so it hits the right thing. But in here, we're dealing with one conference at a time. So this is okay. This is kind of the power of this whole thing, is that you can do absolutely bespoke kind of approaches and still have a convention that doesn't seem like you're doing something different every time. So yeah, let's keep going. And we have some idiots spamming us. Get rid of that message, which is only good for spamming. So see if we can actually run this application now. We should be able, we have navigation for both. So go here, and I think it ran last time too. Oh yeah, so at least we have this conference ID, provide conference ID. We still have this to do thing. Okay, because we didn't unhook the old ones. We actually have a problem that we have multiple ways that the same same URL has been mapped, because we still have the old one down here. So I think we want to get rid of the old ones. I kind of, well, I do know how this whole thing works. These tests I kind of don't want. I do have an exception here, which is interesting because so we have a refinement function that makes the result so I kind of want to return a parameter here to instruct the bootstrapper what to do, because I don't want the processor action to do anything more than interrogate the to-do list item. And just like a human would interrogate that list manually by looking at the data on the screen and then entering the appropriate data inside the text box and hitting submit. So this won't do. This is really what we have here. And we want to return the generated conference ID. Or do we want to no, I think what we want to do this is interesting. how do we take care of this? So the processor action for each item, it just needs to return a false, a true or false. So who is going to provide that? No, actually it has to return. Yeah, the processor action is the automation. So this will be like, yeah, retrieving the weather data or processing a payment, calling a payment API. So this is where the dynamic stuff comes in. Just like for the navigation, it's coming in from the user in the output. So we need to do that, but we also it's almost as if we need a second function to say, hey, do I need to do something for this item, yes or no? And then a second action that says, okay, if I do have something, do this. In this case, we have the make result, so that we know that it's the refinement action that we have to do, and pass in a processor. So I think we have processor action, and we actually do have a processor filter. Oops. I think we have to do that. We can obviously... okay, that's pretty good. So if it equals blah, 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 then we do that. But we're going to have a try catch problem and all sorts of things here, right? So, for now, let's just do it this way. See what happens. So, yeah, the processor filter will do that. And so now, if we pass the filter and we return a true, then we'll have to get the parameter, essentially feed the parameter to the refinement function. And in this case, it's going to be the ID. Because the conference ID is going to be, I guess, just the parameter. I'm not going to do that. So, and generate conference ID is really just the UUID. That's not like, this is just the call to the UU. Oh no, I think we do want to generate ID because I think we control, where's it up here? We do control like the, here, generate ID. That's what we do. Generate ID. That's where we control the length of it. I don't have an example of it here, but we will shortly. I really didn't want long UUIDs or GUIDs in here because it just makes things bad to read. So I wrapped the UUID generation with this wrapper for whether we use long IDs or not. And so I flip the long IDs on if I specify long IDs. Otherwise, it's false. And we have basically just the 8 characters up here, like the first 8 characters, the UID, which makes it way more readable when we're playing around with the application here and learning about stuff than having like a giant 24 character thing, kind of hogging space on our output. Anyway, and there's many reasons why you want UUIDs. You don't want incremental IDs, simply for like if you're doing what's it called, distributed systems. You really want the thing that's creating something to provide you an ID. You don't want to have to go back and forth to say, hey, database, which ID are you up to? And give me the one you're going to use. So you don't want that insert mechanism there. You really want things to be fire and forget, and you get fire and forget with UUIDs. Yeah, so it makes it just assumes that it's going to be unique, which is good. You don't have to have this back and forth. It has many, many advantages. That's a topic for another day. So yeah, and of course for this conference ID, it serves a double purpose because UUID is unguessable. If we had like linear ones, we'd have to add some salting and hashing on top of the identifier that we have in the database, and this is just all unnecessary when we provide a UUID instead. So that's why we do that. So hopefully this, this actually should be inside the processor. So I kind of want to move this down and just have our standard stuff at the top. This should make it a lot easier to kind of read, I think. Yeah, let me know what you think in the chat. That didn't look good. Processor navigation, Control Z. Let's put that back to where it was. And why? Okay, because the processor got added to the navigation by accident, and that is not good. So the navigation ends on its own. Move that over here. And that's better. Okay, so the processor is its own entry. And so now we'll move that down. Kind of be along its brothers here. Related stuff. So shift tab that into place. And so something's up here. Why is that refinement function? So we have problems with our braces. No, that's event handlers. That is our navigation. This is our refinement function. Yeah, that's all of that, and that's closing that. Okay, so now we have a processor. And so what I want to do is really just wrap this up in. Yeah, we don't want this to close here. We want it to close here. And so that makes sense. So we have two functions on a processor. The thing that filters out whether a to-do list item is something we should act upon gives the criteria there. Of course, we can make these more resilient with try catches and all sorts of things. But then we have this here. And of course, we don't need this. I don't think we need this. So we just have to provide the execution, which is immediate, or have our frequency and all that stuff in there, which is interesting. And so on all of this, we could say a bootstrap function. There we go, over here. So we have our regular default stuff. Let's see, where's our for each? This is it. That's a slice here. So it's this that finishes. So over here, we finished doing all of our slices. So for each slice, it's this level here, right? So for each slice, we do all of this. The app method really is kind of like what we do for each one. And over here, we can do the processors hookup. Or if any. Right. If slice processor, okay, we don't need to do that. We're just going to, I hate that. I want to escape early, right? That's it. We just want to return. And I'm not going to do that because we have some interesting stuff to do for processors. So one of the interesting things is that we really are at the mercy of this to-do list to kick things off if it's immediate. So this is where we need to say listens to, and this is where it's going to listen to a to-do list. So we really have the conference ID generation to do. And I think I'm going to rename that to just not have that processor in there. There's a to-do list. I think that makes sense. So execution immediate listens to that. Because I remember every time that this to-do list happened before, at the end, how do we have that instrumented before? So notify processors. So we had a collection of processors, and then notify processors we called when oh yeah, so if we had an interval, we just went through anytime an event got stored, we went through all processors and triggered them. Because it's like, hey, if in case a to-do list got updated, then a processor would now go and have a chance to look and do something if it needed to. So that's going to change a little bit here. Because we're going to have a different interval. Like we had a global interval for checking this. And now we're going to have a per processor interval of how often we check. So each thing will have its own timer. Like each processor, if you have multiple processors in here, each one will have its own timer. We go and look at things. And this processor's collection is not necessary because now we have the slices we can iterate through the slices and find the ones that have processors at the bootstrap time. But in terms of how we implemented that before, we had Yeah, so we had this here. So basically notify processors happens at the push event. So every time we write an event, we can say that we're notifying processors. And so maybe we don't implement this here in the same place. But, okay, yeah. In this case, we kind of can. So we coupled the processor checking to saying that, hey, this event that we just stored is cared about by this processor. So go do something about it. And I think we need to that. We can't wait until a to-do list is updated. We have to kick off a processor. So we do need to, it's kind of, what it did is kind of good. We do want to, if slice is immediate, yeah, perfect. I don't know about that too much, but I kind of want to build up the processors. Processors, push, slice processor. That might be good enough. Because how we had that here is when we made a processor down here. See, processors push. And here's where we said, here's a function that we want to do, and the event that we want to listen to is the requested event. So, I mean, to be blatantly obvious here, we could say that, you know, here's a collection of events that potentially, you know, will do this. So I think we'll do the same thing. But I kind of feel like I'm missing out on this to-do list thing, but that's okay. We have 2 views for it. We do have event handlers here, so we know which one it... so it listens to, it looks at... It says references. But I kind of don't want to do that, right? It's this event handler, so we don't want to do that. We have our own... But this is for the invariants, so we kind of want to do this references. This one is just a state view for seeing if we could possibly have a problem with running the command, rather than if there, you know, what is the state of all that. And this actually will come up more when we do more dynamic consistency boundary work. The differences between these two will start to become a little bit more apparent. I know this is clear as mud right now, but believe me, it's going somewhere. This is quite important. Let's see. So the next part here is generate ID. That's good. So it's doing that. But now as we're pushing these processors, do I want a generation of an event? I guess I do, because this thing is only ever called when I'm looking at that admin screen. Yet it is a to-do list, and it tells me what things I need to do. This is something that is part of validation. And it could be more non-trivial code here to basically throw exceptions if things are not working out well. I mean, actually, that's a good point. I mean, we could reject that here. So if I don't know if that is correct. State like I think that's right. Initial state is just yeah, a collection of stuff. We had a problem with this. Why does that need to be an array, empty array? I guess it's because it's a to-do list. Did we ever wrap that in something? I guess not. Let's look at this query. It doesn't do anything here. Okay, so might have broken something there, but we'll see. So the requests go in. State is true or false. Okay, I see. So we basically have a... Okay, yeah. So initial state is true. Which is going to make our mustache a little bit different. Because we're going to have the state only like can, you know, what is the current conference ID or something. Actually, no, it's going to be, can I generate a new conference ID? This might be an actual good point where we can have the view of the conference ID something different than the actual conference ID. So yeah. And so this actually is we don't want these histories here. We really just want this same thing here. And yes, I could reuse the same thing, but there are reasons why you might not. And that makes sense because you're going to have basically you're going to have a that screen for this to-do list is only going to say that, hey, has a conference ID been generated? It's just going to say yes, true or false, right? True. And so then if it's stuck, obviously we're waiting for one. So they can then take initiative and type in a conference ID, submit it, and then you'll have it. So okay, I'm starting to like how this is turning out. I think we're starting to get into something that's workable. I do, however, want to orchestrate these a little bit better, because now we have a finer grained way of working. Okay, interesting. I don't know if we're over complicating things now. We have one processor, so really we don't need an array of them, but I know that we need to get ready for that, because we should probably make a second one just to test, make sure that all this array iteration works. But the issue that I'm having here is that we now have this execution immediate for some of them, and we have yeah, so we're gonna have to interrogate them here. Where do we have that? All right, whenever we push, right here we have this notify processors. So we're only gonna need to notify processors when they're not when they don't have an execution of immediate, when they have a frequency, right? And this is the immediate one, where we just notify processors, and here we go for each processor. We just basically call the function with events and all this other stuff, which we have here, which would be the refinement function of the parent of that. Oh, that's interesting. That's another thing. So the refinement function has to be referenced in here. I don't know how that's going to work. So as we're going through these additions, here we're going to really need to have the refinement function hooked up. So we're going to have slice.processor dot refinement equal to the slice refinement function, because we're going to need to call that in there. So I think that's what we're going to leave at today. I'll come back, actually not today. I'm going to come back and show you this working. So I got to take a break for dinner and all those things, and we'll meet up after that. So thanks again for joining. Stay tuned for